75 years ago, my paternal grandmother was a 33-year-old widow. Her husband had died suddenly, and she was left with two young children, my dad and my aunt. They lived in her mother's apartment in New York, 3 generations together. But the future seemed uncertain. 75 years ago, Haley's grandparents boarded a boat. They were survivors. They had met in a DP camp after the war. They got married, had a child, Haley's father. And now they fled the horrors of the land of their birth in order to make Aliyah to the brand new state of Israel. 75 years ago, my maternal grandparents also set out on a journey. They left the land of their birth, Brooklyn, and bought a house in Great Neck. They raised my mother and uncle in that house and resided there for the rest of their lives. Consider for a moment, what was happening in your family 75 years ago? Who was alive? Who wasn't? Where did they live? And what was their life like? What were the many paths that led from 75 years ago to this time and this place, to who and where each of us is today? I also want to invite you to consider what Jewish life looked like in America 75 years ago. Our people had just barely emerged from the cataclysm of the Holocaust. And the fledgling state of Israel was literally fighting to be born. And yet, in that context, a small group of Jews, some from Norwalk and some from Stamford and some from New York City, somehow decided to form a synagogue here in Westport. It's even more incredible because this was a time, mind you, when Jews generally couldn't even purchase property around here. One could say that the founding of Temple Israel is the very definition of chutzpah. Our congregation turned 75 this year. This is a congregation founded on vision and courage and hope. The early years were small. We met here and there. We didn't have a permanent building. We didn't have a settled rabbi. But somehow the community grew. After about a decade, they acquired this property and built this space. And that same year, Rabbi B.T. Rubenstein, who some of you I know knew and loved, became our congregation's first longtime rabbi. Dr. Martin Luther King spoke on this very bema in 1964. Over the years, we expanded and improved our building. We opened our early childhood center in the 70s. Rabbi Bob Orkan succeeded Rabbi Rubenstein in 1982, and just a few years later, Cantor Richard Silverman, our cantor emeritus, came and joined us with his family from California. They grew this congregation. They founded interfaith organizations, and they presided over a period of prosperity. I know that there are some families here in this sanctuary who have been members of Temple Israel for 50 years or more? Raise your hand. If you've been here, you or a family have been here 50 years or more, raise your hand. I love seeing these families, the Friedman family and the Myers family and the Stashauer family. And if you've been a member of Temple Israel for 25 years or more, raise your hand as well. Fabulous. Yes. Yes. We have a number of three-generation families here in our congregation. The Diamond family moved to Westport in 1977. Adam Diamond, I'm going to call you out. Adam was just 2 at the time. And now Adam serves on our board of trustees. And he and Beth's twins, Charlie and Nathan, will soon become B'nai Mitzvah on this bima. And last night, many of you saw Alan Kay, who, with his wife Adrian, joined this congregation in 1984, come to the bima to offer Avinu Malkeinu with his granddaughter Rose, age 8, who has been part of Temple Israel since she was just 2. It was beautiful. And today marks my 10th High Holy Days here at Temple Israel. In that period, our membership has increased by 30%. We're now over 850 families strong. Our budget has doubled. Our early childhood enrollment has tripled. The clergy team has grown to 5 of us, and the full-time staff has similarly expanded. It just so happens that we have precisely 75 new member families in the year 2023. But friends, numbers, as robust as they might be, should never be the measure of success of our congregation. I want to share with you the results of a recent study. Researchers asked Jews, "What do you think of your rabbi?" The good news, at least for those of us on the bima, is that people generally like their rabbis and their cantors. But do you know what the number one gripe Jews have about their clergy is? Feeling judged. And I get it. No one wants to feel judged. But if you want to know the truth, I am judging you. And I think you're amazing. I am so proud to be the rabbi of this congregation because of the way I see all of you living Jewish lives. I see that you live lives filled with mitzvot. A mitzvah is more than the colloquial meaning of a good deed, and it's more than the literal meaning of a commandment. Rabbi Elliot Cosgrove defines it as an act of positive Jewish identification. In February, our congregant George Claros came to see me. "Rabbi, I want to become Jewish," he said. "George, you're not Jewish? You're here all the time. I had no idea." And he said to me, "I've been married to a wonderful Jewish woman for over 30 years, and I recently turned 80. But Rabbi, I'm not doing this because I want to die Jewish. I'm doing this because I want to live Jewish." And so many of you are like George. This year, we have officiated at more conversions than in my previous 8 years combined. Our congregational calendar is packed with baby naming ceremonies. So many of you want to welcome new life with Jewish ceremony and blessings because we want our children to inherit this precious legacy, this identity of being Jewish. And there's so much more. I notice how many of you wear a chai or a Magen David or a Hamsa. I know how many of you have visited Israel recently. And sometimes you apologize. You say, Rabbi, we're sorry. We would have loved to go on the temple's trip to Israel, but we were just there for a wedding and we had such a lovely time. That's fabulous. I've learned how many of you watch our live stream, both today and on Shabbat. Rabbi, you apologize. I'm sorry we don't come to shul more, but we watch the live stream almost every week. That's fantastic. And I've heard many of you sheepishly admit to lighting Shabbat candles. You often downplay it by saying, sometimes we don't have the wine or the challah, and sometimes we don't say the blessings. But guess what? That's incredible. I've seen you show up for friends when they're sitting Shiva. I've seen how you take care of neighbors who are elderly or sick, and how you put time and love into hosting the most significant Jewish meals of the year. I have seen 11 or 12-year-olds convince their parents to join this congregation because they want to become bar or bat mitzvah. Not for the party, mind you, but because they want to connect with this wonderful tradition that is ancient and wise and world-changing. You bring your grandchildren to our young family Shabbat or to our family service this morning. You read Jewish books. You follow the news from Israel and ensure its support here in the United States. You give generously to tzedakah. When one of our members broke the news to his family that he needed a kidney transplant, all 3 of his children raised their hands and volunteered to donate. You put the value of tikkun olam into practice, repairing the world. You take your children to rallies, hoping that they might take up the cause of justice, and you run for office, or you support your spouse who's doing so, writing postcards late at night, even when you come home tired from work. It is often truly astounding to me that anyone still wants to be Jewish. Despite 3,000 years of persecution, and despite rising anti-Semitism, despite Israel being regularly vilified, despite religion having a terrible reputation in our world, each of us is here because Judaism is a core aspect of our identity. In a world where you can choose to be anything or nothing at all, you choose to be Jewish. And you choose it again and again and again. I could not be more proud. We live in an era when synagogue membership across the country is stagnant or declining. But here at TI, an entirely different story is being written. Many of us moved to this area because we knew that this was the place where we would find vibrant Jewish life. Rabbi David Wolpe says, the synagogue will be the place where our society's greatest epidemic, which is loneliness, finds its greatest cure, which is community. When I speak with people about what they love about Temple Israel, that is usually precisely the first word out of their mouths: community. So how will we, this beautiful community, this holy congregation, manage to flourish for the next 75 years? First, we will flourish if we continue to experiment and innovate. As we look back across Jewish history, we see that the most influential figures were not those who simply upheld a tradition. They were the innovators who boldly moved Jewish life forward at times of opportunity. They were the ones who paved the way for a renewed flourishing of Jewish life. I think of Hillel and Akiva, who established the rabbinic tradition, enabling Judaism to evolve beyond priests and sacrifice. I think of Maimonides and Mendelssohn, who merged Judaism with Western philosophy, giving Judaism renewed intellectual rigor. Theodor Herzl envisioned a thriving Jewish state. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel brought social justice to the core of who we are. Rabbi Sally Priesand and my childhood cantor, Cantor Barbara Osfeld, were the first women to be ordained. And my rabbi, Rabbi Karen Bender, was the first openly LGBTQ person to be ordained. Each of them courageously broadened the boundaries of Jewish life in our own day. In the words of Adam Grant, the responsibility of each generation is not to please their predecessors. Sorry, Mom, but it is more important to make our children proud than to make our parents proud. That was my mother-in-law, by the way. And second, we will flourish if we live our values. As you know, I've always preached and tried to live by the principle that words are cheap, actions matter. This year, our congregation unveiled a brand new statement of our vision and mission and values, which you can find on our website, on cards available in this sanctuary, and at the entrance to our building. Thank you, Marcy Sternheim, wherever you are. Here at Temple Israel, we are committed to inclusivity, to ensuring that everyone feels like they belong, regardless of their background, their name, or their family structure. We celebrate Jewish pride that we deeply feel, and we cultivate the Jewish resilience that we know we need. We magnify the joy and celebration that are hallmarks of Jewish life, and we fill our Jewish lives with meaningful ritual, prayer, and music. And we will always affirm that the state of Israel is central to Jewish life. I want to spend a moment on this particular value because this year is Israel's 75th anniversary too. We should all take tremendous pride in everything that Israel has accomplished. It began as a desert outpost of survivors and refugees, and transformed itself to a secure and strong nation, a technological powerhouse, a creative force, and a vibrant democracy. At the moment, Israelis are wrestling with essential questions about the nature of their democracy and its leadership. And no matter what, we are a congregation that will always love and support the state of Israel, even as we hope and encourage it to be better than it is today. We work toward an Israel that is safe, democratic, and proudly Jewish, upholding the very best principles of our tradition. Like so many Jews before them, our founders had vision and courage. They imagined a congregation that would take care of one another, play a significant role in the community, respond to the changing needs of the day, and most significantly, a congregation that would nourish countless Jewish lives. Thanks to them and thanks to the many others who have sustained us over these 75 years. When each of us came here to Westport, we arrived to find a gift, a flourishing Jewish community called Temple Israel. This is our Jewish home. It has nurtured our desire to enrich our lives with mitzvot. It has enabled us to live our cherished Jewish values. It has blessed us with community in an era of loneliness. Today, we launch a year-long celebration of our 75-year journey as a congregation and of the bright future that lies ahead. We will celebrate and tell the story of our founders. We'll honor our longest tenured members, will provide many of you with the opportunity to tell your own family's Jewish story as well. And we'll look ahead by beginning a conversation about this space that has served us so well for 65 years. We'll envision how it might serve our congregation in the decades to come. Our families have each come quite a ways in 75 years, and so has this congregation. Here's to the next 75 years, to our Jewish home, to the strength of our community, and to our future together. Ken Ihi Ratzon. May it be so.
Here I am, just as I am. One voice in this song, we all sing where we belong. We don't always know which way to go, and we may roam, but we come home. This I know. You have always belonged here. You have always belonged right here. Return us to you, to ourselves and all that's true. Oh, the winds of time have blown, and we have grown, but we still we're not alone. You have always belonged here. You have always belonged right here. Keep it to feel this house shall be a house of prayer for all the light you bring. You have